The American Civil War, waged from 1861 to 1865, is remembered till this day. Before and during the Civil War, the North and South had different views on economic issues. The war was about slavery, but mostly about its economic consequences. The northern states wanted economic expansion that would change the Southern's slaveholding way of life. Politicians and important figures. Abraham Lincoln, 16th President of the United States from 1861 to 1865. Lincoln's election caused the South to rebel from the U.S. Lincoln held Union forces to resist the split and preserve the Union. Jefferson Davis. Davis was a senator from Mississippi during the Civil War. He was the leader of the Southern Confederate States who wished to retain slavery and break away from the Union. Ulysses S. Grant, the U.S. general who rose to commander of the Union forces for the final year of the Civil War. Grant was an able commander who improved the performances of the Union Army. Harriet Tubman escaped to freedom in the North in 1849 to become the most famous conductor of the Underground Railroad. Tubman risked her life to lead hundreds of family members and other slaves from the plantation system to freedom on this elaborate secret network of safe houses. Irvin McDowell. At the outbreak of the Civil War on May 14, 1861, Irvin McDowell was promoted to the rank of general as a result of political connections to the Secretary of the Treasury, Salmon P. Chase. Causes: slavery. The burning issue that led to the disruption of the Union was the debate over the future of slavery. That dispute led to a war in which the northern and western states/territories fought to preserve the Union, and the South fought to establish independence as a new confederation of states under its own constitution. The Dred Scott decision. Dred Scott, a slave who sought citizenship through the American legal system, whose case eventually ended up in the Supreme Court. The Dred Scott decision in 1857 denied his request, also stating that no person with African blood could become a U.S. citizen. Besides denying citizenship for African Americans, it also contradicts the Missouri Compromise of 1820, which had restricted slavery in U.S. territories. States' rights. States' rights refers to the struggle between the federal government and individual states over political power. In Civil War times, this struggle focused heavily on the institution of slavery and whether the federal government had the right to regulate or even abolish slavery within state. The sides of this debate were largely drawn between northern and southern states, thus widened the growing division within the nation. The Underground Railroad. Some abolitionists actively helped slaves to escape via the Underground Railroad, and there were instances in which men were sent to retrieve runaways that were attacked and beaten by abolitionist mobs. To the slave-holding states, this meant Northerners wanted to choose which parts of the Constitution they would enforce, while expecting the South to honor the entire document. The War. Summary. The Civil War consisted of nearly 10,500 battles, engagements, and other military actions, including nearly 50 major battles and about 100 others that had major significance. The remainder were either not as important or results of previous battles. These were fought in 23 different states and resulted in a total of over 650,000 casualties. A soldier's day. Soldiers were awoken at dawn to begin their day. They had drills in the morning and afternoon where they practiced for battle. Each soldier had to know his place in the unit so that the army could fight as a group. Fighting together and quickly obeying the commands of the officers was a key to victory. Between drills, soldiers would do chores like cooking, fixing uniforms, or cleaning equipment. In any free time, they might play games such as poker or dominoes. At night, some soldiers would have guard duty. This would make for a long and tiring day. Important dates. November 6, 1860. Abraham Lincoln wins a four-way race for President of the United States. Although he doesn't win a popular majority and isn't even on the ballot in 9 southern states, he earned enough electoral votes to beat all other components. July 21, 1861. The first battle of Bull Run pits Union General Irvin McDowell against the new Confederate Army. McDowell is defeated, causing a panicked retreat back to Washington, which is about 40 miles away. The withdrawal is hampered by the large numbers of spectators who are there to see the battle. August 30th, 1862. The second battle of Bull Run is a resounding victory for the Confederate General Stonewall Jackson. Union General John Pope is blamed for the loss and was relieved of his duties after the battle. Later, Lincoln does not regain consciousness after being shot at Ford's Theater. He dies from his wound. Effects. The Civil War was one of the most tragic wars in American history. More Americans died then than any other wars combined. Brother fought against brother, and the nation was torn apart. In the end, we must look at the important consequences of the conflict. There may be others, but this is a good list to work off of. A. The nation was reunited and the southern states were not allowed to secede. B. The South was placed under military rule and divided to military districts. Southern states had to then apply remission to the Union. C. The federal government proved itself supreme over the states. Essentially, this was a war over states' rights and federalism, and the victor was the power of the national government. D. Slavery was effectively ended. While slavery was not officially outlawed until the passage of the 13th Amendment, the slaves were still set free upon the end of the war. Reconstruction, the plan to rebuild America after the war began. F. Industrialism began as a result of the increase in wartime production. And for 4 years of fighting, the North won the war. The troublesome negative conflict has cast shadows on the successes of America ever since. The country had to find ways to heal the wounds of the war during Reconstruction, which fell to the political and innermost values of whites in South and North.